Hello. In the 1960s, the counterculture movement began in the USA with drug use, nudity, and sexual liberation becoming popular trends among the youth. A few years later, a Colombian man established a drug trafficking route from South USA to the USA, transporting over 15 tons of cocaine into the country daily. During that time, he earned $30 billion and became the seventh richest person in the world. He then ran for the presidency of Colombia, but when he lost, he killed 3 presidential candidates, bombed a civilian airplane, destroyed a government building, carried out hundreds of bombings, and killed more than 5,000 people. Eventually, he bribed the military, attacked the National Ministry of Justice, kidnapped 25 Supreme Court judges, killed 11 of them, and escaped. This man was the Colombian drug lord, Pablo Escobar. Pablo started his business as a teenager, initially stealing gravestones, erasing the inscriptions, and then selling them. He later moved on to selling fake lottery tickets, counterfeit degrees, stealing cars, kidnapping for ransom, and smuggling goods. Once to smuggle whiskey, he used coffins to hide the bottles, staging fake funerals to avoid suspicion. As his business grew, he smuggled more and more items, and at its peak, 40 trucks crossed the Panama-Colombia border every day. By the age of 26, he had earned 100 million pesos. And that same year, he discovered an even more lucrative business than smuggling: drug trafficking, specifically cocaine. The first time he trafficked cocaine, it was just 14 kilograms. But Pablo realized that this earned him more money than smuggling 40 truckloads of TVs. To form his own crew in 1975, he killed the notorious local drug lord, Fabio Restrepo, and forcibly took over his operation. At the same time, he invested large sums of money to build drug production laboratories and hired high-paid chemists to refine powdered cocaine from its paste form, making drug transportation much easier. Initially, he bribed many pilots, flight attendants, and passengers to smuggle drugs. But with so many people involved, he wasn't making much money himself. To change this, he collaborated with the Panamanian government to purchase a large area of land in Norman's Cay, 340 kilometers south of Florida, where he built an airport, radar systems, specialized cold storage for cocaine and other infrastructure, creating a major drug transit point. He also hired many bodyguards, Doberman dogs, and other professional armed forces to ensure the safety of Norman's Cay. He then purchased several King airplanes transporting 300 kilograms of cocaine to Norman's Cay daily, and from there it was sent to the USA using dedicated planes. Once in the USA, the drugs were transported to warehouses by car and then distributed to drug dealers, similar to today's express delivery services. Each shipment came with a bill of lading and a delivery receipt, and each cocaine distributor had their own unique code and provided home delivery services. After confirming the delivery location, the two parties would directly exchange trucks, one filled with cash and the other with cocaine. To further improve his drug trafficking efficiency, he purchased 15 large planes and 6 helicopters, directly establishing an aviation fleet that even included jets. A single flight could transport up to 11 tons of cocaine. He began building numerous factories and laboratories in the jungles of Colombia, capable of producing 10,000 kilograms of cocaine in one night. With so many employees, he even constructed schools, hospitals, canteens, and other infrastructure. Not only that, but Pablo also owned many remotely controlled submarines, ships, speedboats, and large trucks to smuggle drugs into the USA around the clock. He continued to hire many high-paid chemists to continuously improve his drug trafficking methods. Through long-term and diligent research, chemists discovered that liquid cocaine could be directly added to wine, dried fish, canned fish, and even soaked into wood in Colombian jeans or made into PVC pipes, religious statues, and many other items. After being transported to the USA, they could refine the cocaine through reverse chemical reactions. At its peak, he smuggled 15 tons of cocaine into the USA, daily worth more than $1 billion. The Medellin drug cartel he led monopolized 80% of the global cocaine market. Pablo's assets also reached $30 billion, making him the 7th richest person in the world. Every week, the cost of rubber bands used to bundle money alone exceeded $1,000. Hiding the money became a major issue with secret rooms, warehouses, swimming pools, wall cavities, and even his sofas filled with cash. He bought 20 square kilometers of land in his hometown to build the Naples Ranch, an area 2/3 the size of Macau, China. Inside, it had 2 helipads, 27 artificial lakes, 10 villas, 1,700 employees, a go-kart track, a water park, a bullfighting arena, a sculpture park, and a huge wildlife zoo, along with many luxurious cars and yachts. He also turned a coral island in the Caribbean Sea into a private resort. Additionally, he sponsored the Medellin national football team, helping them win the Copa Libertadores, a top club competition in South USA held annually since 1960. This was the most prestigious club football tournament in South USA and marked Colombia's first Copa Libertadores trophy. Not only that, but he also built football fields, multi-sport complexes, and sponsored youth football teams while constructing 250 houses in eastern Medellin to distribute to the poor. Today, that area has become a large residential community with 4,000 houses and 16,000 residents. Through a series of these activities, he successfully built the image of a philanthropist with an increasingly high reputation. At this point, his ambition became clear: to become the president of Colombia and rule the country. Through bribery, he enlisted Alberto Santofimio of the Colombian Liberal Party, successfully becoming the alternate candidate for the House of Representatives. Alberto accepted money and resigned, so Pablo naturally became a congressman. This was the closest he came to his dream. He even represented the Colombian government at the inauguration of the Spanish president, with countless officials proactively greeting him. At that moment, he felt like he was the president of Colombia, but the newly appointed Minister of Justice, Rodrigo Lara, shattered his beautiful dream by publicly disclosing a previous arrest warrant for Pablo. In May 1976, Pablo was caught by the Medellin police transporting 18 kilograms of cocaine paste from Ecuador. However, he didn't consider it a serious issue. Unable to bribe the judge handling the case, he killed the 2 police officers who arrested him and successfully erased the case. He never expected that someone would find this arrest warrant, and with that, Pablo lost all hope of running for president and was expelled from the House of Representatives. The Colombian Minister of Justice, Rodrigo Lara, then 37 years old, did not stop there. He collaborated with the USA DEA to shut down one of Pablo's cocaine production facilities and seized many small planes, helicopters, and a large amount of cocaine. This completely enraged Pablo, and Lara was about to witness just how brutal an angry drug lord could be. The Colombian government, fearing for Lara's safety, assigned 2 armored vehicles and 2 personal bodyguards to ensure his security. On the evening of April 30th, 1984, the Minister of Justice, Lara, who had just been in office for 8 months, was driving on Route 127 in Bogota when a gunman on a motorcycle approached from behind and opened fire with a machine gun. Lara died on the spot while his 2 bodyguards remained unharmed. This assassination shocked the entire country. The Colombian government not only began cracking down on drug lords, but also planned to pass extradition laws to arrest the drug kingpins and send them to the USA. In a large-scale raid, they captured Pablo's accountant and seized several trucks filled with drug trafficking documents, filling the first floor of the Colombian Supreme Court's archive. This evidence was enough to sentence Pablo to 100 life terms. Desperate, he bribed the M-19 guerrilla forces, also known as the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, providing them with a large quantity of weapons and explosives. At 11:35 a.m. on November 6, 1985, 3 tanks stormed into the parking lot of Colombia's National Justice Department and began firing indiscriminately, simultaneously taking control of the first floor and the main entrance. 25 minutes later, they had killed all the security personnel and completely controlled the National Justice Department, kidnapping 25 Supreme Court justices, of which 11 were killed. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court was even burned alive, after which they set fire to the National Justice Department. The fire lasted 2 days and 2 nights, completely destroying all of Pablo's criminal evidence. The commander of the M-19 guerrilla forces and 4 other senior commanders also suddenly died, and all the evidence vanished in the fire. These events further enraged the Colombian government, leading to an even harsher crackdown on drug lords. From January 1985 to February 1987, 7 Colombian drug lords were extradited to the USA, including key figures from the Ochoa cartel of the Medellin gang and Norman's K handler Carlos Later. To oppose the extradition treaty, Pablo formed an assassination organization specifically to kill anyone involved in the extradition treaty process, including high-ranking officials, police officers, and even innocent civilians, turning himself from a drug lord into a terrorist. On October 15, 1984, Jorge Ochoa, one of the Medellin gang lords, was arrested in Spain. After being extradited back to Colombia, the drug trafficking organizations openly threatened the government, stating that for every Colombian drug lord extradited, they would kill 10 Colombian judges. Subsequently, they kidnapped a candidate for mayor of Medellin as a hostage, demanding the release of Jorge Ochoa, or else they would kill the hostage. Reluctantly, they had to release Jorge Ochoa. On December 30th, 1987, high-ranking Colombian officials were in disarray, which leads us to the next key figure, Liberal Party presidential candidate Luis Carlos Galán. He publicly criticized Pablo's drug trafficking organization and promised that if elected president, he would extradite all drug lords to the USA. The Colombian people perceived him as tough, a real man running for president, and they were sure to vote for him. His approval rating soared to 60%. Despite Pablo's frantic threats, he not only refused to back down, but also made cracking down on drug lords his campaign slogan. In April 1989, when Galán was about to deliver a speech at the University of Medellin, the police received a tip-off and promptly discovered a rocket launcher and a car filled with grenades and long-range weapons nearby. The initial assassination attempt failed, which further bolstered Galán's confidence. When Colombian intelligence received information about an assassination plot and advised Galán not to attend the Soacha Square rally, he outright refused. At 8 p.m. on August 18, 1989, Galán, protected by 18 armed bodyguards, stepped onto Soacha Square. As he waved to the crowd and was about to start his speech, a gunman shot him dead on the spot, sending shockwaves throughout Colombia. The police began searching every farm, villa, and Pablo's Napoles ranch. When he woke up, he received the news but remained calm, heading to the bathroom to shave before sitting down for breakfast. His family and friends were worried sick, urging him constantly, let's go, they're coming, they're over there." Pablo, however, said, "Don't panic." Then he calmly put on his sneakers, tied his laces, and slowly headed towards the helicopter to escape to Panama. In exile, Pablo missed Medellin and Colombia immensely. He openly declared his willingness to disband the Medellin drug trafficking cartel and repay over $10 billion in government debt on behalf of Colombia, as long as he wouldn't be extradited. He even offered to serve prison time in Colombia just to be able to die in his homeland, but the then president of Colombia directly refused, leading to Pablo's frenzied retaliation. On August 23, 1989, Pablo bought 3,000 kilograms of ammonium nitrate explosives and a large cache of heavy weapons, declaring a full-scale war against the state. The quantity of explosives was sufficient to completely destroy Colombia's capital, Bogotá. Over the next 3 months, he carried out more than 100 bombings and began targeting Colombian presidential candidate César Gaviria for assassination. The plan was audacious. They found a desperately poor 17-year-old boy and told him that if he secretly recorded others talking on a plane, he would receive $1 million. That day, the boy, wearing new clothes bought by the drug dealers, boarded a plane for the first time. After 6 minutes of climbing to 4,000 meters, he nervously pressed the record button. A bright spark instantly ignited the aircraft's fuel tank, causing a second explosion. None of the 101 passengers and 6 crew members on board survived. Luggage fragments of the fuselage and human remains were scattered across the hillside 5 kilometers south of Bogotá, near Soacha Square. The plane's debris also crushed 3 early rising farmers on their way to work. However, their intended target Gaviria had been held back by someone just before boarding and was not on the flight. It's unclear whether Gaviria was furious, but Pablo certainly was. His subordinates quickly began planning another assassination attempt. 9 days later, a car carrying 1,000 kilograms of ammonium nitrate explosives slowly parked beside the Colombian intelligence headquarters DS. The primary target was the head of DS, General Hugo Martinez. The plan was to wait for him to enter the building and then detonate the car. However, they hadn't anticipated that he would use the underground parking lot instead of the main lobby where the assassins were waiting. The assassin, after waiting in vain, decided to step outside to discuss with the driver what to do next. As soon as the driver saw him step out, he immediately detonated the bomb. The DS building was at the epicenter of the explosion, and its 11-story facade was completely destroyed. The explosion's target, the head of DS, was sitting in his steel-reinforced office on the top floor. Bodies lay outside his office, yet he remained unscathed. Undeniably, his luck was extraordinary. The first attempt with 50 kilograms of explosives resulted in 4 bodyguards dead and 50 injured, but he remained unharmed. The second assassination attempt was thwarted when the police, acting on a tip-off, arrested an assassin and found a car with 100 kilograms of explosives, 15 kilograms of bombs, numerous detonators and fuses, yet he still was unscathed. The third attempt with 1,000 kilograms of explosives destroyed 26 surrounding neighborhoods, killed 63, and injured over 1,000, but again, he remained unharmed. The failed assassination attempts only made Pablo more frenzied. He began indiscriminate attacks on airports, government buildings, shopping centers, supermarkets, banks, schools, and the power grid. These actions not only caused significant damage to cities, but also heightened the fear in society. To strike harder against the drug cartels, the Colombian government and the USA Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, collaborated to eliminate Rodriguez Gacha, one of the Medellin cartel bosses, and his son. The Cali cartel quickly rose and began seizing Pablo's territory, even bombing his home. The explosion severely affected his daughter's hearing, leaving Pablo exhausted and yearning for peace, seeking to negotiate. Meanwhile, Colombian President Gaviria, wanting to survive Pablo's frantic assassination attempts, was forced to reach an agreement with him and sign a treaty. He also enacted a new constitution in 1991, prohibiting the extradition of Colombian citizens to the USA. Pablo surrendered to the Colombian government under the condition of only a 5-year prison sentence, to be served in a prison he had constructed called La Catedral. This prison was as luxurious as a hotel, with a helicopter pad, a soccer field, a gym, a bar, a sauna, a disco, and even a small chapel and natural waterfall. Pablo even set up a massive playground for his daughter, who visited frequently, and installed a powerful telescope to watch and call his family, possibly the earliest version of a video call. Besides frequent family visits, Pablo regularly hosted parties in the prison, with all-night festivities being a typical scene in his prison. Furthermore, the prison's location on a mountaintop offered a beautiful view, overlooking the entire Medellin. The steep mountain, shrouded in fog after 6 p.m., made it hard to stage a sudden nighttime attack. During the day, with no fog, everything at the foot of the mountain was visible, making an attack challenging. Meanwhile, Pablo had an enormous arsenal. In addition to the government-deployed military, he had his private guards ensuring security, turning his time in prison into a golden era. With ample security, he had no fear of government pursuit or assassination attempts, by rivals allowing him to earn 7.2 billion USD within 12 months. Today, this prison is a famous tourist attraction in Colombia. Suspecting that 2 of his senior aides had stolen 3 tons of cocaine, he had them beaten to death, their bodies dismembered and burned. To mask the smell of burning, he deliberately hosted a barbecue that night. On July 10, 1992, the Colombian government discovered the bodies of the 2 aides. Realizing there was a traitor among his ranks, Pablo had 22 more people disappear within 2 days, His brazen attitude left the Colombian government no choice but to decide to transfer him to a regular prison. Pablo staunchly refused. A few days later, the Colombian president dispatched 2 battalions of soldiers to surround the prison and sent the deputy justice minister to negotiate, but he was kidnapped. When the deputy minister called the president, his hand trembled as a submachine gun was aimed at his forehead. The gunman, highly agitated, was ready to operate the radio to order widespread terror across Medellin. This gunman was the chief assassin, nicknamed Sailor Popeye, responsible for killing over 1,000 people. On July 22nd, the 4th Army Brigade approached the prison at 3 a.m., leading to a fierce conflict. 2 officials were rescued, but Pablo disguised himself as a woman, donned a wig, climbed a 5-meter wall in the backyard, and vanished into the morning mist, commencing his life on the run. Over the next 16 months, thousands of soldiers and police officers combed Medellin, executing 11,000 search warrants and setting up 4,000 checkpoints, yet Pablo remained elusive. Someone always tipped off Pablo an hour or 2 before the police acted. His extraordinary abilities and extensive bribery, especially among those hunting him, made him nearly untouchable. With no alternative, the Colombian military formed a special 600-member task force. The USA also dispatched the Joint Special Operations Command, including Navy SEALs and Delta Force, along with military intelligence to Colombia to capture Pablo. Pablo's enemies also banded together to form Los Pepes, funded by Pablo's rival, the second-largest drug cartel in Colombia, the Cali cartel. These individuals, dangerous drug traffickers and terrorists like Pablo, created a unique historical alliance. The CIA, DEA, Los Pepes drug cartel, and the Colombian government collaborated, sharing intelligence and even the USA Special Forces operational guidance across 3 continents. However, they still could not capture Pablo. Los Pepes' goal of finding Pablo differed from the government's. They primarily aimed to assassinate Pablo, seize his territory, and sell cocaine. They employed Pablo's own tactics of killing anyone loyal to him. In December 1992, the Medellin cartel endured 10 bombings. In 1993, Bogotá and Medellin faced 20 bombings. Over 300 of Pablo's associates were killed, including lawyers, accountants, and henchmen. Simultaneously, vast assets were destroyed and seized, including large cocaine quantities and Pablo's homes. Pablo's family and friends were also targeted, with 2 of his mother's farms bombed. In essence, their actions mirrored Pablo's as they reaped significant benefits and committed numerous crimes. Ultimately, the French government provided a large quantity of high-tech tracking and advanced eavesdropping equipment, capable of pinpointing someone's location within 3 minutes. Pablo, with his exceptional skills, quickly learned of this and never exceeded 3 minutes per call, often making calls while in a moving car. By the time Colombian police pinpointed his location, he was already 10 kilometers away. On December 2, 1993, 2 days after his 44th birthday and his 7th appearance on Forbes' list of the world's richest Colombian police, successfully traced a call he made that lasted over 3 minutes. The reason for the extended call remains unknown, but it no longer mattered. Police swiftly approached a middle-class neighborhood in Medellin and identified the house where Pablo was hiding. Pablo, armed, spotted the police outside the window, and they saw him. With only 1 bodyguard, Pablo jumped out the window and ran barefoot across the rooftop. As he prepared to shoot at the police, his chance vanished. He was shot in the leg and torso, with a fatal bullet hitting his right ear. Thus ended the life of drug lord Pablo Escobar. All Colombian and USA police on the scene cheered, "Long live Colombia." Some said it was Colombia's greatest moment. Others called Pablo's death the end of the drug and violence era. However, drug shipments to the USA did not decrease. The Cali cartel replaced Pablo as the new drug empire, having learned from Pablo's mistakes, disguising as businessmen to trade drugs and limiting violence. Colombian authorities estimate that from 1989 to 1993, the Medellin cartel killed over 5,500 people. At one point, to oppose the Colombian government's extradition treaty, Pablo announced a bounty for killing police officers. offering 2 million pesos for each officer killed, leading to the deaths of 550 innocent officers. In early 1990, Medellin was the world's most violent city, with 380 murders per 100,000 people annually. Up to 400 people were killed every weekend. But within a year of Pablo's death, Medellin's murder rate dropped by 80%. Thus, for most Colombians, Pablo was their nightmare. After Pablo's death, 25,000 people attended his funeral, mostly poor Medellin residents he had helped. In Medellin, some still fondly call him Pablo. In Juni's commercial area, T-shirts and mugs bearing Pablo's image are best-selling souvenirs. Pablo's grave is always clean, tidy, and adorned with fresh flowers. Although his aid to the poor was to build his reputation and run for president, Pablo is remembered as a ruthless killer, yet also a generous person. Once, while on the run, he burned $2 million overnight to keep his daughter warm. Now, Pablo's mansion lies in ruins. When someone disregards the law and social norms, they are bound to meet a tragic end. A person wielding near unlimited wealth and force without restraint enters an extremely dangerous state. As Pablo's power and fortune swelled, he dreamed of ruling Colombia. Had he succeeded, would his next step have been to dominate the world? A person without limits, unbound by rules, is like a wild horse set loose, destined to harm others and themselves. What do you think of this story? Leave your thoughts below for everyone to see. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support me. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.